people are happy when they're out gardening and their hands are in the soil and they're breathing fresh air and they're away from their devices and not in front of their screens. And it's like, we need more of that. And so with my enthusiasm and my passion for it and my love of teaching that I think I got from my mother again, I use what I know and the contacts I have and the resources that I have before me to try to make it an inviting situation for as many people as possible. And I'll keep doing that until I'm compost.
Hi, everyone. Today, I'm really excited to invite our fourth guest on the Get Up and Grow podcast. His name is Joe Lample, but he's more known as Joe Gardner. You may know him as the host and executive producer of the PBS show Growing a Greener World that's Emmy nominated, or you may have seen him on NBC's Today Show, ABC's Good Morning America, the Weather Channel, and more. He believes the world needs more gardens and more gardeners, so today he makes educating new and experienced growers his top priority. All of his knowledge is accessible to everyone through his website, joegardner.com. We get into his story and why gardening is so important for our minds and the planet. So here is my conversation with Joe Gardner. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Taylor. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you making the time. I know you're busy with, all the classes you're teaching right now. I don't know if you're on seed starting or vegetables. Or...
We just finished our biggest course ever. It's called Organic Vegetable Gardening. We've been working on it for almost 2 years. Took all year off last year to film it. So we didn't take off. We just turned everything else off that we would normally be doing, like a television show, and focused on filming this for this new course. And literally last night at midnight, we closed the doors to enrollment. So now we can work with our students. I don't even know how many people are on board, but I think we had a really good turnout and I'm super excited. So it's nice to have a breather day and talk to you because it's been really hectic up until, it's always hectic, but it's just a little less hectic today. So I'm glad I'm here with you.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. And so the courses are done. It's now just dealing with the students and having them follow the course.
Yeah. I mean, I basically coach them and mentor them through a year-long program. And I can't continue to launch new courses or create new courses if I'm working with them and dedicated to them. And, they've got a good investment in the tuition. And I want to make sure that they feel like they're getting their money's worth and then some. And so that requires just a lot of attention. But that's what I like to do. I like to teach. And so that's kind of a collective group of like-minded people that want to learn how to grow organically their food gardens. And so that's what we're doing.
Oh, awesome. I mean, I know who you are. I'm sure a lot of people do in the US. You've been all over TV for the past few years. What are some things you could just say to people that might not know who you are? How did you first get into gardening? That's maybe the first question.
Sure. So I grew up in Miami, Florida, and I was the youngest of 4 boys. And so my next oldest brother to me was 5 years older than me. And so on the weekends, this is going back when I was 8 years old. This is why I'm telling you this, is that I'd follow my dad around on the weekends because he was the weekend warrior. He had his week job, his suit and tie job during the week. And on the weekends, he'd mow the grass and edge the driveway and trim the bushes. And so my 13-year-old brother would be out hanging out with his friends and everything. So it was just me and dad, which was great. I loved not sharing anybody else with him for the weekend. And I'd tag along behind him and just, hang out with him. And so at the end of one day on a Saturday, he walks in the house and he's done. I still got a lot of energy in me. So I'm running around and I run by this this shrub that he just got through pruning or clipping. And I broke one of the branches off and I'm like, oh my God, now what do I do? So I didn't want to get caught. So not knowing what to do, I just covered my tracks. I stuck that broken branch into the ground right there by the base and covered it up with soil and went about my business. And then like 2 months later, I came back by there and I recognized that was the branch or the plant where I broke the branch, but I couldn't find the dead branch because the dead branch had sprouted new leaves and it was putting on new roots. And I was like, what the heck is happening here? This is unbelievable. It was so cool. And literally that was my moment where I knew that I needed to know more. And Taylor, honestly, that I never stopped from that point. You could not turn me off from wanting to know more about how plants grow. And I wanted to grow more plants and I started seeds and I had a little nursery business. And I mean, it's never slowed down from there. And obviously today, to answer your question, this is my 3rd national television show. This one I created in 2009 called Growing a Greener World. Yep. It's a national show on PBS, but my entree into television was 20 years ago when I was hosting for DIY Network. They picked me to be the host of their show called Fresh from the Garden, and it was teaching people how to grow food. Every episode was one episode at a time, one crop at a time. So like one whole show would be how to grow tomatoes from seed to harvest. The next one would be corn, then beans, and then whatever for 52 of those episodes. And then it retired because we ran out of things to teach people to grow. But I always introduce myself as Joe Lample, the Joe behind Joe Gardner. Joe Gardner is my brand, and joegardner.com is my main website. I have my podcast, The Joe Gardner Show, and then the television show I mentioned, Growing a Greener World. And then the Online Gardening Academy is where I'm spending a lot of time. We just let off talking about that, and that's the online courses. And we've got, maybe 7 out there now and a lot of students, and I love it. So I stay busy all the time, and I love what I do, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, wow. It's such a trajectory, and like since 8 years old to now, just going on every level with the gardening. I mean, and through media, you've probably seen so many changes and adaptations. I mean, you're running your own thing now, and Instagram growers are becoming a thing, and just like from television to that, like, what do you think of the shifts that are happening? Like, you've definitely kept with the times as well.
Well, I've tried, it's even hard as fast as it moves, as everyone knows these days. But if you're in media, you got to understand where the people are and how it's evolving. And for example, television, traditional broadcast television and raising funds and underwriting money and stuff like that, the money isn't really getting poured into television anymore. And so nor really is the audience that you're after. And so we evolve with that, and we think about how long do we keep the television show going versus shifting over to maybe more YouTube style or high-end video production or these courses. And so we're always evolving, and thankfully I have a really good team, and it keeps us busy trying to stay on top of it all, man. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Your stuff is top notch though. I mean, everything you've ever put out is so solid. So that's great that you've kept up through all the changes. But I wanted to ask you, because did you just appear one day on a set and someone was like, "Oh, you're hired," or how do you credit your success in television? Like, how did that opportunity come about? Were you just in the right place at the right time, or what?
A little of that, but when DIY Network was doing their national search for the host, they were putting out an email blast to everybody in media that was like a writer or somebody that might know the person that they were looking for. They knew what they wanted in the host, but they didn't know who that host was yet. And so one of those people got an email that I had never met in person, but she was a magazine editor who had asked me to write a column for a magazine. Before I even wrote the first column, she got that email, and she emailed me and she said, "Joe, this DIY Network is looking for a host of a gardening television show, and they're describing who they're looking for, and it's you. You need to get in touch with them and let them know you're the one they're looking for." So I said, all right. So I took her lead, and I followed up, and I introduced myself, and I convinced the producer to meet me for lunch. And I couldn't tell if he liked me or not. But a week later, he called me back and said, "Hey, I talked to my producer about you, and we really want to get you on a screen test to see how you do." I'd never been on television before. I didn't know. I watched all the gardening shows, but that's as far as it went. But I was good. I was a horticulturist. I knew my stuff. I was confident. And that's how I was able to be successful when I did the screen test. I really wasn't intimidated by the camera, even though the day I showed up, there's the whole crew, the lights, the sound guys, the cameras. But because they were having me talk about what I knew so well that I could talk about it in my sleep, I just did that. I felt silly walking and pretending I'm the host of a show and, going through the lines over and over, because they kept having me do it over and over and over again and no feedback. And I'm like, this is weird. They're not even telling me any constructive criticism or anything. But they had me do it several times. And then it was like, "Okay, thanks very much. We'll let you know." It's like, what? I mean, that's how this ends? I don't even know if I'm going to get called back. I don't know. But a week later, they called me back and they told me I was their top male pick, and they were evaluating everything, but they were looking at females too, and they'd know within a month. And it took a month. I got a call, and they told me they had narrowed it down. Well, before that, they told me they'd narrowed it down to one female and one male, but they were only going with one host, and whichever gender they ended up with was who's going to be the host. So a week later, they called me and said I got the job. But the reason why I was able to be successful at it, and why I convinced them, and why I've done well since with television, is because I'm talking about a subject I know and love and pour my life into. It's my avocation and my vocation. And if I'm talking about something I know about, I'm good. but I'm a terrible actor. So don't have me try to teach you how to cook something or build something. But if you want me to be on television about gardening, I'm your guy. And that's how it's translated through gardening. But I think I would fail miserably if it was any other subject.
Well, when you were young, I read a little bit of your story. You said that you as a kid wanted to go straight into gardening right away, but your
Yeah.
mother convinced you to go to school and go to business school instead. Did that help you at all? Do you think that was a good idea?
In addition to, yes, she was
Yeah.
a brilliant woman, high school teacher, smartest woman I ever met. And she said, look, I'm fully supportive of that. But while you're there, why don't you get a double degree and get it in business so that when you come out, you've got more options. And she was right, because when I was, ready to go to work, everybody's recruiting for business and there weren't many people banging down the door for horticulturists or garden people. So I entered the business world, but fortunately I wasn't there long. And I knew I was only going to be there as long as it took for me to find what I really wanted to do and where my heart was with horticulture. I'd never envisioned it being a television show to be my entree, but it did give me the springboard that I needed to have a national platform and recognition and build my brand. And to your point, the business degree was golden for me because it really gave me that sense of what I needed to do business-wise to be a public gardener and make a living at it. So it was a really good combination. So thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. I mean, like, you're such a positive guy. You've been doing this as long as you have. I mean, a question I have is like, what makes Joe Joe? Like, by that, I mean, like, you have such a beautiful website, so much content, all this knowledge. Like, what motivates you to keep educating people with such a positive and caring attitude?
Because there's no reason not to be positive and no reason not to be caring. And there's too many mean people. And I refuse to be one of them. And I just think the world needs more gardeners. And if I am the one to help add a few of those to the list, let me be that person, or let me be Joe Appleseed, whatever. I want people to love gardening as much as I do, because I am so fulfilled by it. I love it more today than I did yesterday, and tomorrow I'm going to love it more than I do today. And I've been that way ever since I was 8, because it's just such a sense of wonder, and it's no 2 days are the same, and it's not in your control, which is a really good thing, because to your point about, having all this high end quality to everything I do, that's a little bit of a control freak issue, And I think why I love gardening so much is that it humbles me and anyone that thinks that they can get an edge up on Mother Nature, because they can't, but it brings you, it grounds you, it literally grounds you. And people are happy when they're out gardening and their hands are in the soil and they're breathing fresh air and they're away from their devices and not in front of their screens. And it's like, we need more of that. And so with my enthusiasm and my passion for it and my love of teaching that I think I got from my mother again, I use what I know and the contacts I have and the resources that I have before me to try to make it an inviting situation for as many people as possible. And I'll keep doing that until I'm compost.
Well, we appreciate you sharing, I mean, I know you have content that's paid, but you also have a ton of content that's free. And yeah, I was just looking at your website. I'll share it towards the end, but I just want to go through a little bit of your website with you for people. You said like why it's important to teach, why gardening is important. What do you see as the next thing? You have so much going on now. What's next? Like, what's next for Joe?
In the field, you mean? Yeah. I mean, to me, this is where I live, this is my universe. And, so continuing to teach people, inspire people, find out what people's needs are to meet those needs. I feel like I am on the front lines, on the cutting edge of just kind of being in the know of what people are wanting and what they need, what they don't know, what's not out there yet that we can create. And again, because not only myself, but my team, we have our finger on the pulse of what gardeners are thinking and doing and wanting. And that's why we try to be out there ahead of the masses, to be that person. And so we're always looking, but I think for me, it's to actually create enough content that people can access it free or paid for, depending on what they want to. So there's not a gap that we're aware of, which allows me to scale a little bit more, because right now, I mean, we're going so hard, so fast, and have been for so long. I need a little breathing room. And so I'm trying to scale back a little bit, because I have a great team that allows me to do that and do a little more traveling with my wife, because, so much of what I do is traveling related, and it's work. It's not pleasure trips, although they're fun, but I'm producing a television show and I'm on the road. And so I'm the executive producer, the host, the kind of the writer, the guy that's watching the clock to make sure we make our flights and our connections and get the guests to say what they're supposed to say. And it's just like so much. And so I'm not a good traveling companion when I'm on a work trip, but now I'm doing some more overseas trips for garden tours and kind of leading those and seeing places I've never been to before. And that's fun, and sharing some of that experience with people, and, just trying to smell the roses a little more, but being responsive as possible.
Yeah, I saw you have something coming up in September. You're going to France and Italy.
Is it September? Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, October, September, France, and we're going to northern Italy and south of France. Yeah, southern France, and then a few more trips after that are on the books already for Costa Rica and South Africa and some other places. Yeah, so some more of that is good, but I'm a homebody too. The funny thing is, I don't really love to travel because I like where I live. I like my garden. I like my greenhouse now, and I love being home. I love this environment. So, I'm trying to make up for a little lost time for pleasure traveling and taking my wife to go on trips that she's never been on either, because she deserves that too. She's been very patient with me, so we're having some fun with that.
Well, that's what's going on in the future for you. That's good. Can you walk us? I know you're so busy. Like every day is probably different than the other, but could you walk us through like a day on your farm of just work that you do?
Yeah. So I get up at 5 and sometimes earlier, but I'm kind of working by 5-ish, and I have to, because I'm an early riser anyway. But it's important that I get the most important things off my plate first. And for me, it's taking care of my students. And so that's a lot of people now with all our courses out there, and the fact that we've been out there since 2018. And so there's a lot of questions from them, and they deserve my attention first, because honestly, they're paying a tuition and they deserve that. So I make sure that I address them as much as I can first thing through the online community, the course platform, and some other places where they have access. So that's first thing. And then I'm going through the social media channels and responding to everybody that's, got a question or a comment that deserves, a comment back. And I'm one that has a hard time not responding back, so I probably spend more time than I should in that area, but I'm a people pleaser, so I'm always, making a point of acknowledging people's efforts to reach out to me. They deserve an answer back. And so I don't think you can ever be too busy to not forget, these people look to you as one of their mentors, and I know that's the case for me. And so I want to not disappoint, and I want to be able to provide those teachable moments. So it takes some extra hours a day, which is why it starts so early. And then I'm down working with my team, and mainly my director of marketing and communications, Amy Prentice, and we're huddling up every morning for a Zoom call, and then we're mapping out our day. And then depending on what I'm working on, it's either, podcast writing, podcast review, editing that, creating new videos for our brand partners, or creating course content for my platforms, or gardening. There's that too. But, the funny thing is, it's my pleasure gardening's on the weekends, my gardening during the week, although it's pleasure, it's because we're creating content, we're shooting videos, or we're doing research or something like that. So it's all work related. And so there's always the clock is ticking, or their production value issues that we're dealing with. And so it takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but it could be worse. I could be doing something I really don't like at all, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. What gardening chore do you least look forward to doing?
What jumped out at me right away was weeding, but I don't even mind weeding. I actually pulled back on that answer, because weeding to me is kind of zen, especially after it's rained and the ground is soft and you're out there by yourself and the birds are singing, but there's no one else out there and you're just pulling weeds. And if they come up easily, that's the difference between hating it and not minding it. And so we've had plenty of rain lately, so there's no problem with the weeds coming up, but they come, even with me and the things that I do. I'm an organic gardener, so I'm not out there spraying pesticides or herbicides or any of that. So when it comes to weeding, it's hand pulling. But, you just try to stay on top of it and do a little bit every week, and it's never overwhelming. So that said, I mean, I kind of like it all. I'd have to think about what it is I don't like about gardening. Yeah. Oh, just probably protecting I have a lot of deer around here, and I'm not doing a good job of protecting my plants from the deer. So that's something I keep putting off that I need to do. And I'm not looking forward to that, but it needs to be done.
I know you've been doing this a while. What's something new you've learned about gardening recently? I'm sure you learn something every day, from like people asking you different questions, but
yes. Well, what I really love is getting into the geeky side of gardening, like the soil science and the chemistry of science and the biology of it, and learning more about the microbiology in the soil with the fungi and the bacteria and the pH and the cation exchange capacity and all. I just love reading the geeky stuff about gardening that isn't typically the first thing that you're going to find in a general gardening article, but
right.
the more of that I can find and read, the more I understand, that enables me to explain in my words, after distilling out all that geeky stuff, to help the new gardener or the person that's trying to get better but doesn't really want to go into the depths of understanding all of that science behind it. And so I'm always trying to better myself and broaden my knowledge at a deeper level so that I can apply that to explain the why do behind the how to. That's something I always tell people. It's important to understand the why do behind the how to, so that, it's good to know the steps of what you need to do to make that successful, but it's better for you to understand why you need to do those steps so that you can apply that information when Mother Nature throws you that curveball. And I often describe it as like the difference between being a cook and a chef. With a cook, you just follow the recipe card, which is fine. But the chef can go into a pantry without a recipe card, and somebody can say, well, make me something. And the chef can look at the ingredients in the pantry and use their mind to know what ingredients work together and what doesn't work together, and come up with some amazing dish because of their depth of knowledge. And so that's what I try to be from a gardening standpoint.
I can relate to that. As a lighting person starting my business, I was very tech heavy with this, the spectrum, wavelengths, and
yes,
how you have to use this much light, this much ppfd. But I've become a lot better at explaining to people, like, okay, this is the spectrum you need for strawberries at this stage, or this is the light you need for this at this specific stage. So spoon feeding information, because otherwise it's overwhelming.
Taylor, it's great that you even said that, because one of the reasons I was so attracted to you and your company and your website is just the level of information you were providing that was satisfying my thirst and need to know more than what you're going to see on an Amazon site for grow lights, And I could tell that you were making a very good effort and doing a great job serving the people like me that wanted to know that information, that weren't able to find it elsewhere. So kudos to you for that. But I'm glad you said that, because I meant to. I don't know that I've ever told you that, but I mean, that's how I first really, you were kind of my go-to light company guy because of that. I appreciated that, and I wanted to help support that.
Well, thanks for the shout out. No, I mean, it's about balancing your knowledge and your tech side with, the inviting side to people that, don't know that much, but you want to get them over to that side. So
exactly.
Finding that middle ground.
Exactly.
But yeah, I feel like I want to get into something with you about mindset. Like, what kind of a mindset do you need to have to be an effective gardener? You wake up. You said you wake up at 5, and you're positive. Like, what is the mindset you need, and what is the mindset you can develop through gardening?
I think you need to have a mindset of constantly trying to improve without ever trying to pursue perfection, because that would be the biggest waste of your time. There's too many curveballs going on all the time. It's always changing. I said, no 2 days are the same. And so gardening is this experience. You're working. I'm just in awe of nature, and to be able to get my hands and have some influence, not control, but influence on what happens in the garden and with the soil, and seeing the results of my efforts combined with what I know from learning and what I've seen from experience to try to have even a better garden the following year. It's so there's this built-in optimism as a gardener. Even if you had a terrible year, as long as you're willing to think, well, next year is going to be better, there you go. You're going to get after it next year. And so that gives you that hope and that drive and that interest and wonderment, of like, well, what's next year going to be like? And how can I do this differently? And why did that happen? And how do I make it better next year? Because there's always next year. And to me, that attitude of knowing that, combined with admitting that you cannot control it, you can influence it, but you can't control it. That's a relief. That's a little bit forgiving. It's comforting, reassuring. And then you team up with other like-minded people who get you and you get them for our quirks and our interest in those kind of things. And you got this camaraderie. And so you can be as active with other people doing what you love to do if you want to. But if you are an introvert soloist, you can be out there by yourself 24/7. So there's something for everybody. And I just think that's so cool, just so cool.
Yeah, I think through that, over the years, gardening, there's something to look forward to, but can you develop some kind of peace, you think? Or is there always like, gosh darn it, like, why didn't this do that? Like, or is there because you're kind of slowing down? Is there slowing down your mind as well?
Let me tell you, that's up to the gardener or the person that's, into this experience as to how they choose to pursue it. And for a guy who is quality driven and driven, period, I am a reforming control freak when it comes to the garden and in life. But and I just think that comes with time. But gardening enough and realizing, what, I know enough to know that this is not the end of the world. As bad as this looks, or for somebody that doesn't know, they might be freaking out about it. I've learned to take so much of that in stride and know that I can fix that, or even when I can't fix it, just to know that you can't fix it is cool, fine. And the stakes are so low with gardening. It's like, okay, so that was a pack of seeds or a plant or whatever. I mean, there's just never a huge investment. And so as you mature in your endeavors, that is liberating as can be. And so you could be that super stressed person and try to control everything, but sooner or later you realize that you can't. And the sooner you recognize that, the better for your sanity.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so that's about mindset. You can try to control something, but then you develop maybe less controlling tendencies and go for it.
Yeah. Just an example.
Like you said, it applies to everything. Yeah.
It does apply to everything. But it's like, it's interesting because like today we're doing our first day of opening plant sale for all the 2,700 seedlings I have in the greenhouse. And this is my first year with a greenhouse. So I have no experience growing in a greenhouse, but I have a lot of experience growing under lights and then growing them out until they're ready to go outside entirely indoors. And so last year, as an example, we were coming up on our frost-free date, which is when everybody wants to buy your seedlings. And we were behind because we'd had a lot of cloudy days and we were hardening off plants, but they were super small. And it was like we were apologizing to everybody because they were way small than what we wanted to offer. We wanted to offer a good, hardy, stocky product, but they weren't that. But this year, I have the opposite problem. I have plants that are so tall and so big because of the greenhouse factor after, getting them from inside to outside and getting under that natural light. It's like, holy cow. So now this year I'm staking everything. And like just before I came on with you, I've got 3 people out there plus myself staking up these super tall plants that are going out to the table for sale because it's 180 degree difference from last year. But again, it's like, okay, next year I know that I'm not going to start my seeds so early. It's like, okay, so this is fine. I already know what I'm going to do next year. Yeah.
How important is sustainability to growing, and how have you taken the steps to implement it into your garden?
To me, it's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big part. It's gardeners, there's, even before COVID, there were like 90 million. And so it's got to be well over 100 something now. And so if you think about collectively the impact, positively or negatively, that gardeners can have in their own little corner of the earth, just that whether it's a condo or an apartment balcony or a little urban bungalow or a hobby farm like I've got in 5 acres, it's like what we do under our watch and how we grow what we grow and how we use what we use as we do it influences everything. It's the collective thing. Me by myself going to change dramatically what happens around me? Maybe not, but I'm going to darn well make sure that whatever's under my watch, I'm being a good steward of it. And I'm going to not only pay attention to how well I can grow my plants, but how I impact the environment around. So I have a healthy ecosystem and a biodiverse, thriving environment that brings in beneficial insects and birds. And I don't ever have to worry about the fact that something I use is going to have a residual effect or unintended consequences to birds that eat the bugs that I might have sprayed a pesticide on. And now the birds die. I mean, that's not happening under my watch. And we need to be more mindful of that, because with habitat loss and urban sprawl and just the fact that animals don't have anywhere to go anymore. And so they're being forced to locations that aren't natural to them, but it's where humans live, and humans want what they want when they want it. And because of instant gratification and their lust for, all these things, they want a quick fix. And oftentimes those quick fixes have severe unintended consequences. And so I'm doing everything I can under my watch and under my influence to make people aware that they have choices and what the positive and negative consequences are of their actions.
So in your courses, like you do go into, you could do it this way, or you could do it that way. Like,
yep.
I know you, yeah.
I mean, I make people aware of their options, but I don't recommend that they do it any way other than organic approaches, because that's who I am. And so I understand. I believe in providing the objective information so they're educated and then they understand their options. But then I'm going to be sure that I'm putting in my recommendation and why. I always believe that, when you add your why, you feel a certain way or feel so strongly about something, it helps explain your position, but it helps people also understand get a better picture of, why that makes sense when you explain more than just the basic information.
The greenhouse is new. That's a nice way to save energy with natural sunlight. That's got to be a help.
Yeah. It has been amazing. And it's got power in it too, but I don't even run heat out there if the temperature is going to be above like 37 Fahrenheit, because I know that here's another thing, I've learned over time what plants can take and what they can't take, and they can take cooler temperatures than I think people realize. And so, I'm not plugging in heaters out there unnecessarily or running lights or fans and things that I don't need to run. And, I haven't fertilized a single thing out there from the times I've sowed everything from January 1st with my peppers and February with my tomatoes. Nothing's been fertilized. And so even organically, it takes resources to make that stuff, especially non-organic products. And that's just another way that my desire to be a good steward plays into what I do.
How can growing at home be beneficial to an individual or, society as a whole? You were kind of touching on that earlier, but how do you see this? I mean, the world's changing, like food prices are rising. Like, is this stuff important?
Yes. Okay. So, yes, my gosh, the prices lately more than ever, the food prices, taking control over what you grow or what you put into your body is very important for a lot of us. And for me, that's a big part of why I do what I do with all the food that I grow is, I want to know what I'm eating and how it's grown. And so I can control that from the start with the seeds that I buy, being certified organic, even knowing that they've been grown organically before I ever get to them, and supporting those companies that are going the extra effort to grow out organically. They're good stewards too, and I want to support them. So I get their seeds, I grow it out and know that, nothing's tainted it. And I've got super resilience because the farmers that grow the plants to produce the seed are handpicking the most resilient plants that they've been working with. So that natural selection is passing forward to me. So that's a cool thing. But growing our own food, taking control over what goes into our body, being good stewards so that we minimize the amount of food miles that all of this food is coming from overseas and across the country. And, supporting, even if we're not growing it ourselves, supporting our local farmers and our farmers markets and things like that. That's, it's all part of the big picture. And it's important that we do that combined with the sense of well-being, having a healthy diversion, getting away from the television or the screens, and family time. My gosh, if you're a young parent or an old parent with kids or grandkids, or you could be a mentor to a community, to a school, and teach them. And gardening, it's more than just growing pretty flowers or eating healthy food. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. There's every educational application can be applied through gardening to English, math, science, art, literature, geometry, everything. And so there's just, I don't know, many ways that gardening is not connected for the betterment of mankind if you allow it to be. So we all need to be growing something.
Yeah, I think especially during the pandemic, when we had a chance to be around family a little bit more in our communities, people really did start taking up gardening. I think there was a big shift. I don't know if you saw that or if it's still happening.
Oh, I did.
Teetering off, or
it's tapered off, but we had a 2021, we had a good 2020. Little did we know, we were just doing what we were doing, but being in the gardening profession was a good place to be during the pandemic. And, with our online courses, that really helped. And 2021 was even better than 2020. And then it tapered off in 22 because life kind of got back to normal and people started getting back to what they were used to beforehand. And yet we still have a lot of gardeners. And this course that we just closed last night, I think we had a really great turnout for enrollment. So I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, me too. Well, how does someone that sees you as an inspiration, how would they take the first step to starting their own garden? What basic things do they need? What do they need to do?
Yes. JoeGardner.com. JoeGardner.com is really a darn good place to start because I really, the content I create could be, pretty heady or pretty complex if I wanted it to be, but that doesn't foster new gardeners. What I want to be is that person that is attracting a new class of gardeners, and they typically don't start off learning about PPFD or stuff like that. So let me teach them about getting your soil right and why that's so important and things like that.
Do you mind if I share your screen, your website?
Please do. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. You know what I really like about your website? There's a button that says "Start Here."
Yeah.
Because there's just so much.
I haven't looked at that page in a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have you got videos, podcasts, blog. I went here and I was just like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on here.
Yeah, and then the podcast. We are 6 years in. We just passed 10 million downloads. We're the top podcast in Apple for gardening, but I tell you that just because that's a really great place as you're finding out to connect with an audience. And when we do a podcast, we do extensive show notes. I have a writer that listens to the podcast recording before it's posted and writes a dedicated blog post for every episode we've done. And we're up to episode 307 right now. So that's a lot of information on every topic. I don't know that there's a topic we haven't covered. It's almost like what's next, what's new that we haven't talked about, like bonsai.
You're talking with experts here. Bonsai. Yeah.
Experts. We go for the top people in their field for sure. It's important. For the reason we've already talked about, I like to max out on the people, their level of expertise. And I write a book every now and then too. I saw that show up. Yeah, it's busy times.
And you have free guides. That's great.
Yeah, we have free downloadable guides, and we just try to, like you said earlier on, we try to provide a lot of free content. And then for those that want to go deeper, we have the Online Gardening Academy. And so that's there for people that aren't getting their needs met with, a random YouTube video or trying to read an article or get a book. It's like, those are great. And I'm all for those. But when you have follow-up questions or you need more information, it's not as easy to just go back to that person and get an update or a follow-up question or go deeper on that topic. And then there's just the lack of continuity of who that information is coming from, the style of it. When you find somebody that you like and you trust and you feel like you know them and they're serving you with that information, you want to be able to serve them as long as they want to be served. So that's why, 307 episodes in, I'm still doing a weekly podcast, and I don't see any end in sight for that. And the quality of the content with the show notes and things, that's all important. And that's what people have come to expect. And so, I want to keep doing that.
Well, if you ever want to do an episode about lighting and you need some help on that, I'll be happy.
Yes. We're due for another episode on that. So I'll take you up on that.
All right. Can you tell us about, your course? How do people get signed up for it? I think, did some people miss the deadline, or is there another one coming up?
Yeah. joegardner.com/learn will take you to the landing page for the Online Gardening Academy. Okay. And there you can see the courses that are evergreen, which you can enroll in at any time. And we've done more of that lately, like Beginning Gardener Fundamentals. That's one where that's a great course to start with, because I covered everything somebody that's new to gardening or somebody that's been into it for a few years would want to know to up their game or get started. That's the first course we ever did. I love it as much as ever, and we continue to add to it, but it's a really, really good resource. There's nothing as good like that out there. There's nothing else like it out there. And so, there's notification lists, like waiting lists. They can add their name to be notified when we open up a new course, because most of our courses now I think are evergreen, but some are only open for enrollment once a year, like the one we just launched. And so they'll need to be on a notification list to get an email next time we get ready to open it up, so they don't miss the window. Because when we do open it up, it's usually only for a week, because those are the ones where I'm most actively involved, and we just can't leave it open full time because I can't serve people coming in all through the year. We're moving through the course together at the same time.
Well, yeah, make sure people that go to your website and get on that newsletter, be ready. Yes. Is there any other, before I let you go, is there any other words of advice you can give for people out there thinking of starting and on the fence, not sure, like maybe they don't have enough space, maybe they, there's just so many reasons not to do something.
Well, the only reason not to do it is because you think you don't know where to start or how to start. And what I would say to that is, don't let that be your barrier to entry. Anybody, anywhere can start to grow something, whether it's inside in a windowless apartment. You can do aeroponics or aquaponics, or not aquaponics, aeroponics or hydroponics, these countertop gardens with the grow lights that are basically self-contained. If that's the only thing holding you back, there's no reason to be held back. You can do it. But if you have a balcony or a little sunny spot where you can chase the sun through the day, maybe get a pot, grow some seeds, figure it out, just see what happens. Don't worry if it's not going to, produce a big tomato plant or fruit from it, but watch it grow and see where it starts to taper off. And then ask yourself, why is it not doing as well as it used to? And that you're teaching yourself as you're observing. And those observational moments teach me more than anything else. And that's why, Taylor, with your grow lights and the seed starting that part of the growth phase of gardening, I feel like I learn more during the seed starting to seedling stage before they go outside than any other time in the plant's life, because so much is transforming from the time you take that seed under your watch and put it in the soil and watch it germinate and then nurture it for those 6 or 8 weeks ahead. That to me is the coolest thing ever. And I've been starting seeds for a good part of my life, and I look forward to it every year. I can't wait for seed starting season. And I really think it's like, besides spring season and fall season when the leaves are beautiful and all of that, I think January, February are my favorite other times of the year, not because of the cold weather, but because it's seed starting season. So we can learn so much through what a lot of people would call mistakes, but I call them opportunities with gardening, because it's not all going to work out. But when it doesn't, ask yourself why. Try to figure that out. But the other thing you asked me about, what other advice would I have? Because there's so much information out there. Much of it is disinformation, because anybody anywhere can put anything out there online. And you don't know what you don't know. So if you're new to gardening and you read something that sounds really good and you think, oh man, this guy's got it figured out. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But that's the problem, is you need to find somebody that you can trust, that has a proven track record, whether it's me or somebody else, and hang your hat on that person to take you and guide you along the way. Because if they've been at it a while, they've got a reputation, whether it's good or bad, but you're going to know what it is. And there's that consistency of information and that access to that person typically. And that would be my recommendation. There's just, don't spread yourself too thin out there with just, cherry picking little bits from all these different people. Find a few people that you really like and use them as your guides.
Well, I mean, I hope people come away with this episode, seeing that you are one of those guys. I mean, you've been in this for years. You're still doing it. You're changing with the crowd. You're changing with the media. Like, you're staying on it. You're staying positive. You're staying forward thinking. So you are definitely one of those guys. And I highly recommend everybody out there to take a look at Joe Gardner and join all of his videos and newsletters and everything he's got going, because it's a lot, and you'll never run out of things to look at and learn more about. So
right.
Well, I want to thank you, Joe, for your time, and I hope we can keep in touch and dive into some of these topics that we discussed. I mean, there's so much more to talk about, so I appreciate you and
let's do it.
Everything you do for the gardening community.
Well, thank you, and everything that you're doing for the community too. It takes a village, as they say, and you're doing a great job, and you keep up the good work too. And congrats on the podcast, and I look forward to having you on my show. And if I can help you again, just let me know.
All right, Joe. Thank you, sir. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Okay, sounds good,
Adios.
Taylor. Bye.